Hello everybody, welcome as you're joining us. Good afternoon. Seeing lots of names flooding into the room. Welcome to the session, welcome to World Suicide Prevention Day. So inevitably we're just going to give it a couple of minutes for any late attendees. We've had about 80 people sign up for today and there's nearly 30 of you in the room so far. Over 30 now, good. So we'll just give it a couple of minutes. What I would say for you early attendees, if any of you have ever been to one of my webinars before, you won't be surprised to hear that I'm using a tool called WooClap today. So it's an interactive tool. I'm sure you've seen many of them before. This is the one I like to use. So if you want to get ahead of the curve, grab your mobile phone or on your computer browser, open a browser up, and please go to wooclap.com. This is going to allow you to answer some questions we've got for you anonymously. So open up the browser on your phone or on your computer and go to wooclap.com. You should then get this screen asking for an event code. And since today is World Suicide Prevention Day, the code is WSPD. That's not case sensitive. So stick that in as your event code, please, and hit join event. And that should take you to this screen here. So if it says raise your head, there's no vote in progress at the moment. Congratulations, you're safely connected. It's not essential to be on it, but if you want to get the most out of the webinar, and we're very interested to hear what your responses are going to be, then please do go ahead and connect to WooClap for me. So hopefully you can see all those details down the bottom. And we'll be going into WooClap a few times. Also, while we're just waiting for the last few people to come on board, you may not be familiar with the Zoom webinar platform. It's slightly different to normal Zoom. Biggest difference is no one knows that you're here. So you can sit here anonymously. The only way someone will know your name is if you post in chat like Leon just did, or if you ask a question. Notice down the bottom, please, you have both chat and Q&A. We are looking to set aside 10-15 minutes for any questions. So if you could put questions in the Q&A, and you will see a tick box to be able to ask it anonymously. So the only way someone will know you're here is if you've told them, or if you post in chat or an anonymous question. I've just had the question in chat, could you run through WooClap? Yep, most certainly will. As long as you're at that blue and white screen that I just showed you, then all will work well. But when we hit our first WooClap, I'll make sure that everybody knows what they're doing. And if you didn't get on it then, don't worry. Every time we use a WooClap, it's got the web address and the event code at the top of the screen. So I think we'll get underway. What do you reckon, Roberto? Is it about time to rock and roll? Yeah, let's do it. So good afternoon, everyone. Thank you ever so much for coming along to the session today. First time I've ever delivered one with Roberto. So I'm Kevin Moore. I'm one half of this organisation here, Big Dog, Little Dog. If you've met me in the flesh, you'll know I'm the big dog of the two. And we deliver mental health and suicide prevention training and author quite a bit of e-learning around the subject. Roberto is the lead responder at My Mind. My Mind, I know Leon, who's here, likes to refer to it as being an MOT for the mind, a really useful tool that can be used in the workplace to allow employees to get a snapshot of their well-being and to be able to access a range of resources. And you'll see some of those in a little while. I'm going to lead the way for the first 2/3 of the webinar. Then I'm going to hand over to Roberto, and then we'll deal with any questions. So without further ado, I'll bring the deck up, and let me just say, I will be sending out a PDF of the slides after the session. So if you do see anything on screen and you think, I want some of that, don't worry, you will get a copy. So here we go then. Let's have a little look at what we've got for you. Before we begin, let's just acknowledge it's a sensitive subject, suicide. So I just leave it for you to ask yourself, is today a good day for you to be doing this session. And the mention of Plan B is we are recording this session. We won't record the Q&A, just me and Roberto bit. So if for any reason you decide today isn't a good day for you to do this, you will get a link to the recording. What are we looking at? I'm going to give you a brief bit on data because I want to bring you up to date on some vital new evaluations. And then we're going to focus in on conversations. I'll then hand over, when we get to the signposting part, for Roberto to do his thing. What we're not going to cover today, just for your own safety and concerns, we're not going to talk about what methods are used in this country or elsewhere. We're not going to show you anything related to suicide, and we're not going to take you down the road of some of those awful websites that encourage people and advise people around suicide. So let me hit you with the data section. First of all, we're going to use WooClap for the first time. Nice, easy journey into WooClap. So if you've got on there, if you look at your phone now, as if by magic, this question has appeared. Thinking of England, which group has the highest known suicide rate? What I'd like you to do is tap on which one you think is the right answer, then hit the submit button. You can change your answer, but once you hit submit, it's in. If you've only just got here and you're saying, what the hell's this? Look up the top. If you open any browser on your phone or your computer and go to wooclap.com, enter in the event code WSPD, you can come in here as well. And remember, please, this is anonymous. And when we're going to ask your thoughts in a little while, that's really important. So I can see in the bottom right, 38 of you have connected successfully to the platform so far, 39 of you, and the majority of you have answered. So I'm just seeing both numbers going up. It's our very first WooClap, so I'm going to take my time on this one. 44 people connected, of whom 43 have answered. My word, Roberto, we might hit 50 connections. It's looking good. So choose which one you believe to be the right answer or you know to be the right answer, then hit that blue submit button underneath, please. 46 people connected, 44 of you have answered. I'm going to give it another 10 seconds. So there's 2 people who are connected who haven't yet hit submit. So make sure that it does say that your answer's been submitted, please. Okay, let's see how you voted. So, a big split between young men, middle-aged men. What you're saying to me is there are more men dying by suicide than women. Fact of the matter, if we look at coroner verdicts, and we're waiting for the 2024 data to come out next month, but in 2023, fairly consistently with what we usually see, 3 out of every 4 suicides are men. In terms of age, what we see across both sexes is this is what happens with suicide rate. It starts low, it moves up into the middle-aged years, and then it declines. So you can see those middle-aged years of 40 to 59 are the highest rates in England. For men, it's typically 40 to 54. For women, slightly later, 45 to 59. And that flick up that you see on the right-hand side, the increase in suicide rate amongst very old men, is predominantly men. And we believe that's to do with men being less able to go on after the loss of a lifelong partner. So, if we're looking at the data on known suicides, coroner verdicts, the answer is middle-aged men. Well done to those who said that. But I want to tell you about this other set of data that's really important for us. The very flash-sounding Adult Psychiatric Morbidity Survey is a world leader in mental health research. Normally, every 7 years, this gets done. 16 plus are questioned, age 16 plus, and about 7,000 people were questioned for this one. So this isn't about medical records, coroner verdicts. This is the person themselves. answering the question. And if we look there at the question, have you ever thought of suicide? Have you ever attempted suicide? Men are purple, women are orange. So you can see, although far more men die by suicide, slightly more women consider suicide than men, slightly more women attempt suicide than men. So it's not just men we need to look out for. And this is one of the big changes we've seen in this latest survey, where the last one done in 2014 said 1 in 6 people have had thoughts of suicide. You can now see on that left-hand side, 1 in 4 people have thought about taking their own lives. Another woo clap for you. If we asked, have you thought about suicide in the last year? Have you attempted suicide in the last year? Which group do you reckon comes top for both of those? Which of those 4 groups do you reckon has the highest rate of recent suicide thoughts and a recent suicide attempt? Choose the answer you think is right. Hit that submit button, please. We've got 47 of you connected, 48 of you connected. 40 of you have responded so far. It might be the same group. I might be trying to trick you. It might be a different group. So 48 of you connected, 43 of you have answered. Give it 10 more seconds. While we're doing that, let's see how the 45 of you who have answered have voted. So young women is the most popular answer at the moment. I'll give it a few more seconds because someone, number 50, has just joined. Thank you, number 50, for voting. You say young women, and you are correct. So when we start this with middle-aged men have the highest suicide rate, in terms of recent ideation and recent attempts, it's the polar opposite. It's young women. And if we look at the Adult Psychiatric Morbidity Survey for that, here's what we see. On the left, have you thought of suicide in the last year? On the right, have you attempted suicide? So there's men, there's women. Males and females. So you can see the highest rate of recent suicide thoughts is actually young women, followed by not quite so young, but still young compared to me, men. And if we move across to suicide attempts in the last year, there's males, there's females. So again, young females, highest rate of recent suicide attempts. And you'll notice a slight shift in the data for males there. The attempts are happening, peaking slightly later, 35 to 44 age range, than the suicidal thoughts. So when we think, who do we need to keep an eye on? The answer's everyone, isn't it? And if we just took those 2 graphs there and created snapshots out of those, that suggests that suicide thoughts in males peak in the 20s to 30s and then decline. For females, peak in the young, late teens, early 20s and then decline. And suicide attempts peak for males in that early 30s, peak for females in that younger age range. And I know we've got a lot of university staff here today. Obviously, you have a profile of learner that very commonly fits in that 16 to 24 bracket. That's a concern for us, isn't it? So that's the data I wanted to show you. I'll move off data now and think about why we need to change how we talk, because that's the theme for this year. And I've used the 3 wise monkeys: see no evil, hear no evil, speak no evil, because all 3 are relevant when it comes to suicide. If I start with see no evil, think of these government posters. And if you remember the one in the bottom left, congratulations, you're my age. But here are government posters we see all over the place, looking to get the number of road traffic deaths down. Now, in Great Britain, there are around 1,600 road traffic deaths a year. But for every one road traffic death, there are 4 known suicides. But when do you ever see a government poster saying, please don't kill yourself? If you are going to see campaigns, it's typically these kinds of organisations. It's like suicide is a taboo subject. Social media have largely banned use of the word now, because if we don't mention it, maybe it will go away. No, it won't. So there's our first barrier. It's a taboo subject. If I go to the other 2 monkeys, we have further issues. Hear no evil. People are uncomfortable asking about suicide. Speak no evil. Someone having thoughts of suicide is reluctant to speak up. And when you combine those 2, what we create is this incredibly unhealthy wall of silence. And this is what we need to break down. So I'm going to go with speak no evil for a moment. Why are people reluctant to talk about their suicidal thoughts? And I want you to apply this to yourself now, but not around the subject of suicide. Take a moment, please, to privately consider what your biggest secret is. Preferably one that you're embarrassed about. And we've all got one, haven't we? We've all got, the older you get, the more of them you get. We've all got that big secret. I hope no one ever finds out about it. So thinking of what your biggest secret is, go back to WooClap, please, a slightly different one this time. Why wouldn't you tell someone about it? Now this time you can choose more than one answer. And what you'll find is when you click on an answer, there's a comment box. Don't comment, please, unless you choose number 5. If there's an other reason and you're happy to share it anonymously, click on other and then type in your comment anonymously. Why wouldn't you talk to someone about this big secret of yours? We've got 53 people connected now, 20 have answered. Remember, if you choose option 5, other, it'd be really good if you don't mind sharing any other reasons why you wouldn't open up. 53 connected, 33 responded. Some of you hopefully doing a bit of typing in that other comment box. So this one does take a little bit longer. So we're just coming up to 40 people so far. This is how we're going on it. So notice every answer has been chosen multiple times. And we got some comments. Maybe they will have the opposite reaction. Yep. Oh, my WooClap's just gone a bit dodgy. Here we go. Shame, someone said. Yep, thank you. We've got a couple of comments. Number 5, it's not something I want to remember. If I've got to talk about it, I've got to think about it. I don't like to be the focus. I'm ashamed. Thank you all very much. So you can see a plethora of reasons why someone may not want to open up about something that's really hitting there in their mind and they are keeping covered up. Coming back specifically to suicide for a moment, this is what research shows us. These are the 4 main reasons why someone may not open up. And I'll just shut up for a moment while you read them. And just to contextualize that second one for a moment, that fear, I've put I might lose my job. For the university personnel here on the webinar, I might lose a place, my university place. So understanding why someone sees the potential downsides of disclosing is really important. I want to come back to you and your big secret now for a moment. Slightly different woo clap again. We're going to build a little word cloud. If you had to reveal your secret to one person on this planet, what could they do or say that would help you? Keep it short, please, but submit a reason, and you can submit as many reasons as you want. What could a person do or say to make it easier for you to disclose? And what you'll notice on the screen is everyone's answers is appearing on your phone. You can like other people's answers if you want. So, sharing the same secret, not judging, knowing you're not alone. I'm here to listen. Similar issue, saying thank you for sharing. You are still loved and valued. Love that. We will deal with it together. Oh, some beautiful answers coming through. Normalise it. Yeah, we're going to use that N word shortly, definitely. Not dismissing it. Saying they're about a safe space. So look at all of these different things we could do or say to really encourage someone. To say something that all of their instincts say, don't mention this. Brilliant. I'm going to move on. Thank you. So, some principles from that. How can we encourage people to open their mouth and speak these words? And I'm not going to read you through them. I'm just going to bring them up on screen. Good active listening. We need them to be fully open about those thoughts. Being clear on confidentiality, not guaranteeing confidentiality if you can't, but guaranteeing what you can. There's that normalised word that needs to be done skillfully. Number 5, we're going to delve a little deeper into shortly. And number 6, for your own self-preservation as much as anything else. And remember, we are going to be sending out these slides afterwards, so if there's any content on here, don't worry about taking a photo of the screen or pressing your print screen button. We're going to send you a PDF of the entire deck. So here's some things we can do to encourage that second monkey to speak up. So the third and final monkey I've got for you is hear no evil. Why people are afraid of asking about suicide. Guess what? We're back to woo clap. Similar to the 1 2 ago, you can choose as many of these as you want. And if you choose other, I'd love it if you give me a comment on what your other is, please. Why wouldn't you ask someone about suicide? Why wouldn't you ask someone, are you thinking about ending your life? As many of these as are relevant to you, and if you choose number 5, please, I'd love it if you had a comment at number 5. Let's watch them coming through. So every answer has been chosen so far. We've got some comments coming through as well, so let's see those comments while answers coming in. Wouldn't know what action to take. Thank you for your honesty. 8 comments for number 5. I don't have a problem. Good on you. There is no reason. Thank you. I would ask. Good. Knowing boundaries, it may be a trigger for them. That's an interesting one we'll deal with. Hard to deal with the response. I might be scared of the answer. Yeah, some really valid concerns that people do commonly have when it comes to asking about suicide. I'm just going to leave that up there for a few more seconds. We've had 42 of you respond so far. Notice, please, with number 4, I started with see no evil and mentioned that it's like, let's not talk about it. There is no way of making an elephant in the room bigger than ignoring it. Yet so many people are scared of using the word suicide. Thank you very much for your answers. What does the research say? The research gives us these stats over on the left-hand side. Have a look at those. 78% of people. What if I say the wrong thing? 65%. What if it makes it worse? 41%. I might put the idea in their head. 89%. What if they say yes? I wouldn't know what to do. Yeah, if you look on the right of the slide, please, the reality. And it starts with the biggest myth around suicide. There is this myth that if you ask someone who's struggling, if they're having thoughts of suicide, you might put the idea in their head. No, you won't. There's not a shred of research to support that. And in fact, the research goes the other way. Asking someone gives them consent to speak out words that they've probably never said before. Asking saves lives. So then we come on to how we should ask about suicide. This is my final straight before I hand over to Roberto. How should we go about it? Well, first of all, think about those 4 barriers from earlier. The person might feel all 4 of those emotions going on. So anything we can do to counteract those, to show they can trust us, to create an emotional connection, reassure them of their safety, and the biggest of all, provide some sense of hope. Hope really does save lives. So, let's look at language. I have 4 ways of asking about suicide here. Can you please select the 1, 2, 3, or 4 that we would consider inappropriate? Which 1, 2, 3, or 4 of these are bad ways of asking about suicide? Choose all the ones that you believe to be inappropriate and then hit that submit button for me. Are you thinking of hurting yourself? Are you thinking of unaliving yourself? Are you considering ending it all? Are you thinking of giving up? So just over half of you have responded so far. We've got 54 connections on WooClat now, which is fantastic. We're about to hit the 40s in response. Give it 10 more seconds. Don't forget to hit that submit button. In the meantime, let's see how people have been answering. And they've all had at least 8 votes. So let me show you what within the suicidology community, as I believe we're known as, what we would consider the inappropriate ones. And I've got a surprise here for you, because that top one we would consider inappropriate. And I'll tell you why on this one. I'll give you a real live example. I was delivering some suicide prevention trainer training a few years ago. And one of the delegates told of a time when she sat a young learner down and said, "Are you thinking of hurting yourself?" And that young learner looked at her and said, "No, miss, the way I'm thinking of dying isn't going to hurt at all." The 2 right answers down the bottom. Are you considering ending it all? That's pretty clear, isn't it? Are you thinking of giving up is a soft way, not directly asking, providing that is followed up with a direct question after a yes. That's still a good way of asking. So we don't have to go in feet first. I want to do it again, please. Another 4. Which of these are inappropriate questions? Are you thinking of completing suicide? Are you thinking of dying? Are you considering suicide? Are you thinking of committing suicide? Click on the 1, 2, 3, or 4 that you think are inappropriate, please. Just coming up to half of you answered. Good stuff. Here we go. Flooding through now. 10 more seconds. And shortly Roberto's going to be going, "Don't forget to leave me enough time, Kev." Let's see how you've been voting. Okay. Really glad to see that 1 and 4 were your most popular answers, because 1 and 4 are the correct answers. Completing, let's never use a positive word and associate it with suicide, please. Committing, I'm sure you're aware, used to be a crime, suicide, and we tend to use that verb around crime, so it tends to bring some guilt with it. Good, well done. So the golden rule of thumb when it comes to language. Some good phrases you can see there. What makes them good? Clear, direct, no emotions involved. as opposed to bad examples of language. And there on the left, the reasons why we would consider them bad. So please, if you have even just a gut instinct that someone's struggling and they might be thinking of suicide, please ask. I've just got a hand raised at the moment. I'll come to that hand at the end if that's okay when we get to the Q&A. Thank you very much. When we do ask someone, as you've seen from those examples, they tend to be closed questions. Are you thinking about suicide? Are you thinking of taking your life? Closed questions work very nicely to broach the subject, but once we've asked that closed question, if the answer is yes, we need to switch to open questions, and these three tend to be the most useful. Have you thought of where, when, how you might do it? Because what we want to do with this conversation is identify where they might be on a spectrum of suicidal thoughts. And if I share my spectrum with you, everyone's on this spectrum. Most of us are here. We are not experiencing thoughts of suicide. But for about 1 in 4 of us, it might be an occasional brief thought that I can brush aside. It might be more frequent than that, might be stronger than that. But notice in stages 2 and 3, please, the person isn't doing anything with those thoughts. And we call this passive suicide ideation. And that might be where their thoughts end. But if their thoughts do progress, they could move across into active suicide ideation. I'm actually compiling a plan. I'm thinking about where I might buy the paraphernalia from, where I might, when I might. And if they move on beyond that, they go beyond ideation, where the plan is in place and they're about to act. And having a rough idea of where someone is on that spectrum is crucial for us, because we apply signposting according to where we think they might be on that spectrum. So before I hand over to Roberto, 4 asks from me, literally 4 asks. Ask 1, ask them directly. Probe frequency, how often are you having these thoughts? Strengths, how strong do the thoughts feel? Second ask, history. Have they had thoughts of suicide before? Previous attempts is something essential to probe, because someone who has attempted before is exponentially more likely to attempt than someone who never has. Someone with a family history of suicide, again, an exponential increase in the likelihood of suicide as a means of death. Ask number 3, plans. The more fully formed their plan is, the more likely they are on the right side of my spectrum. And finally, switching into a solution mode, do they have a suicide safety plan, which Roberto is going to mention shortly? If they have had suicidal thoughts before, what's helped then? Maybe that will help again now. And really crucially, what help do they want? What help do they not want? Let's be really clear with them on that. That note, Roberto, I'm going to pass the baton over to you.
Thank you, Kev. Let me grab control over this.
Okay, you are away. I'm just going to knock the camera off and then you should have full control, mate.
Perfect, thank you. Hi, everyone. As Kev mentioned, I'm going to be talking a little bit about signposting now and why that's important to focus on. You know, we've been talking about suicide now, but now we need to have an idea of where we can actually turn for help and how we can support others around us that are perhaps looking for help or starting to open those thoughts around getting external help. So we're going to talk about not just listing some resources for you, but also highlighting why it's important to have some of this knowledge and the language and the importance of that, and how each of us can play an important role in suicide prevention. So if we have a look here, why signposting is important in the first place and why it matters is just because one of the biggest barriers that people face when they are experiencing suicidal thoughts is just simply not knowing where they can turn, right? A lot of people don't realize who they can contact. People are not aware that there are resources available to them 24/7. And a lot of people worry that they might be a burden, right? They don't want to be a burden to other people. They don't want to put that responsibility onto people. People that are already experiencing a lot of these thoughts are often carrying this with a lot of shame, a lot of guilt, a lot of secrecy. And people are reluctant to open up about this, right? Because they don't want to further add to that shame and guilt and to put that on other people. Um, so there's a couple of different reasons why it really matters to focus on signposting and highlight this so that we're all aware of what's available, where we can show people the resources that they can access and how they can go about doing that. It's really important to create that safety net so that when somebody reaches their lowest point, they really feel like help is accessible and immediate as well. So we are going to look at some of the warning signs that we can look out for here, right? So this is important because we need to have awareness on being able to recognize when somebody might be at risk, right? And having these different warning signs present themselves, whether it's amongst family members, friends, colleagues, anything like that is really important to pick up on so that we can notice these things. And as Kev's saying, talking about that spectrum of suicidal ideation, trying to pick up where people are on that spectrum so that we know where to go from there and what the next step would be. So as you can see on the screen, there's a couple different things that we can look out for. Indirect or direct talk, right? People might be mentioning things about wanting to die or self-harm, feeling like they are a burden to others, right? Things to look out for. Increased isolation. People might start withdrawing from certain things, whether that's social events, maybe just lunchtime in the workplace. Maybe they stop replying to a lot of your texts or not answering the phone as much. Just a slow isolation and social withdrawal is really important to start picking up on. People might start to express their hopelessness that they might be feeling, and maybe they are feeling desperate, right? Any notes that you can pick up when people are falling into these low moods, right? Important to pick up on. And any sort of unusual behavior, right? This might be easier when the people that we're talking about are close to us, right? Really loved ones that we know quite well, then it's quite easy to pick up what's unusual, right? We might know someone really well and immediately notice when something is off. Perhaps when it's other people that are not as close to us, maybe our colleagues or acquaintances in the workplace, you might not necessarily immediately pick up on what's so unusual and what's not. And in that case, I would say, if you have any doubts, you can always perhaps maybe ask somebody else that might be a little bit closer to them and say, hey, I noticed this. I noticed this person doing X, Y, and Z, and is that a bit unusual? Have you ever seen them doing that before? Just important to be aware of what's going on and in the behavior of others around us, and just keeping a little bit of alert on so that we can start to notice these warning signs, because that's really where we need to make our interventions and try and step in and try to help people, right? The earlier we pick up on these warning signs, the more likely we are to be able to help somebody. So I want to highlight some core crisis support lines in the UK. We're lucky that there are quite a few resources available, right, when it comes to actual crisis support in the UK. There's some brilliant services out there. All the way on the left, we can see there's a number that you can dial, 999, right? So you can also immediately take someone to A&E, right, depending on the severity of the situation. If somebody's all the way in that red spectrum, that's kind of like an emergency option that you can take people directly there. If we are, signposting helplines and various numbers that people can contact, there's a few different options that we can talk about, right? One is the Samaritans, which a lot of people are familiar with, right, and they've heard of. They're available 24/7 any day of the year, any time of the day, you can pick up the phone and speak to a Samaritan, right, on the other end of the line. Really useful number to have and to let people know of, right, and get people to actually save these numbers in their phones or get people familiar with these resources so that if they ever need them, they have them. Something very similar to Samaritans is something called Shout, right? Which is essentially the same service as the Samaritans, but instead of picking up the phone and speaking to somebody on the other end of the line, you have that conversation via text message instead. So some people might find it difficult to have these conversations over the phone. Maybe they're a little bit apprehensive. Again, so many different reasons why we've discussed why people might be reluctant to have these conversations. If it's a little bit easier via text message, then Shout is a great service for that, right? You just text the word Shout to the number on the screen there, and you can have that conversation via text message. So that's a really great service to know about and to signpost people towards. Then there's two other hotlines as well that you'll see there on the bottom side of the screen, Calm and Papyrus. Papyrus specifically for younger people under the age of 35. All right, so that's a number kind of specializing in that age group and demographic. And then there's Calm, which is the Campaign Against Living Miserably, another helpline that's available, another really great organization in the UK that does a lot of work around suicide prevention and awareness and support, right? So again, everyone's going to get these slides. You will have all of these resources sent over to you at the end of the presentation. So good to know that these things exist. They're out there. They're all free, and pretty much most of them are available 24/7. And it's really good to know of these things so that you can point people towards these when they need them. All right. There are some other things out there as well. So if we have a look here, if we start at the top left-hand side, there's something called the Hub of Hope, which is a really good search directory based on your postcode. So you just click on that link over there, you'll get these hyperlinks in the slides. You can't click on it right now because we're sharing, but once you actually have the file documents and the slides, all of these blue underlined links are hyperlinks. They'll take you directly to these resources. So the Hub of Hope is like a database search engine. You put in your postcode and it will show you all of the mental health services and organizations in your area based on your postcode, not specifically just for suicide prevention and assistance, but any mental health service in general, right? So you can have a look based on where you are, what's available in your area. It's a really good starting point to see what's available and what's out there and what's close to you, all right? Just below that, we have the BACP therapist directory. So if you are looking for private therapeutic support, perhaps one-on-one with a therapist, this is a great place to start. It, again, works on your postcode, so you can put in your postcode. If you don't want to necessarily find someone in your area and you're happy to do it online, you can do that as well, right? You just leave your postcode blank. And it's going to find you a bunch of different therapists in your area, right? Or online. You can select some different filters that you want to select from. If there's any particular concerns that you want to address or anything like that, you can filter those results accordingly. And you'll be met with a list of all the various therapists that are around, as well as their prices as well. So this is a really nice directory because it will tell you at a glance how much people are charging per session, right? So you don't actually have to go and contact people one by one and find out. It will just list it all there on that results page, which is fantastic. On the right-hand side, there's an app called the Stay Alive app, which is a fantastic app for suicide prevention, awareness, education. In the app itself, you can create something called a safety plan, which I'm going to explain in a little bit more detail in a few slides. So it's a really good resource to access. You can download it on your phone and you can take it anyway, right? Because you always have your phone on you in your pocket. Something that's quite tangible, like a safety plan. It's always good to have these things and to let people know that these things exist. And like I said, I will explain what exactly a safety plan is in a few moments. And then a PDF resource that you can see over here called Suicide Safer Universities, which is like a resource pack developed by Universities UK and Papyrus, which is one of the organizations we just spoke about on the previous screen. It's got a bunch of information in there around suicide prevention training and specifically how we can make universities a safer place when it comes to suicide. All right. Really important to kind of mention that. I know there are a lot of university staff here today. It's a great resource to have and something that everyone will have access to after this. At the bottom left-hand side, we can see anything for friends, family, and colleagues, right? So perhaps if you are wanting to have conversations with people, right? Trying to hold space for people, which is really important and a really essential skill that we have to develop, right? It's not something that all of us are naturally built with and born with. It's something that we practice, right? How to actually hold space for someone and how to have a conversation with someone around suicide. So if you want some more information around that, there's 3 resources here which are fantastic. We have Mind's Guide to help have that conversation. The Samaritans also have some useful tips and some advice on how you can actually go about having that conversation with someone. And then there is a free online training course around having that conversation as well, which is from Zero Suicide Alliance, right? So you can click on any of those things and it's going to take you to those resources themselves. Really useful to get your confidence up as to how to have that conversation, because a lot of people have a lot of fear. They might be worried that they're not going to say the right thing. They don't know how to ask those questions. So these resources in particular are really useful for that. Because they give us the tools to be able to embark on those conversations that can sometimes be a little bit tricky and sometimes we're not too comfortable having. So they can be really helpful for that. When it comes to MyMind, and using MyMind as an aid to better understand your suicide prevention awareness and understanding. There's a few things that we can do for MyMind, right? So those of you that are familiar with MyMind and familiar with the MyMind assessment know that there's an assessment that you can take. So you answer some questions around your own mental health and well-being. You'll be met with a report with your results in different aspects across 12 different indicators. And depending on your results, you have the opportunity to book in a responder call with somebody like me, right? If you want to discuss your results, talk about further steps and what it is that we can actually do to try and improve your well-being, right? And maybe there's next steps that you want to look at when it comes to signposting. Maybe you are looking for further support, right? So that's something that we can discuss as well. Even if we don't hop on a responder call, there's all of that information anyways from the MyMind Wellness Center when it comes to accessing further support and different signposting resources. On the Wellness Center as well, you'll see various tools based on your particular indicators, right? So you can have a look at those and then link to other areas of your well-being as well. Because when it comes to self-harming behaviors and suicidal thoughts, this is all interlinked with many different areas of our well-being, right? It's not, these things don't exist in isolation. It's all connected to other things at the same time. So having a look at the inside the suicide and self-harm module on the Wellness Center itself, there's a little bit of information in the module that you can explore and unpack around what is self-harm itself, what are suicidal thoughts, why do people experience these certain behaviors and these feelings, and the various types of self-harm itself, right? What can self-harm look like? Because it's not only about injuring oneself. There can be many different self-destructive behaviors that fall into this category, right? So some psychoeducation around that and gaining an understanding of what all of these things mean and how they might relate to you or how they might relate to somebody else in your life that you're trying to assist, right? So definitely go and have a look at that inside the Wellness Center module in the page itself. And then there are some various tools there as well. And this is where I will talk about the safety box, right? So the safety box and the safety plan are similar, but a little bit different. Safety box is something quite tangible that you can create, right? Think of particular memories or special items in your life that give you a sense of purpose and make you feel like you need to stay and that you want to stay, right? Whether that's photos of loved ones, special memories that they bring back, right? Anything that really means something to you. It's about creating something tangible, right? And something to go to in a point of distress. A safety plan itself is a little bit more verbal, right? So you actually, it goes through the process of thinking about what are your particular warning signs, right? What are the things that you should look out for in yourself that start to, raise those warning signs of, okay, maybe I need to look after myself a little bit better. Maybe I should start speaking to somebody about this. Giving you an opportunity to write about warning signs, things that maybe have helped you before in the past, specific contacts that you can write down, friends, family, loved ones that you can contact if you are feeling exceptionally low. It's a whole pack. It's a couple of pages with different things that you can fill out to really be a rock and a grounding tool when you are feeling particularly low. So if you are feeling low, you can whip out your safety plan and go through it, and it will remind you, okay, these are some of the reasons why I want to stay. These are some people that I can contact. These are some things that help me feel better, right? That ground me a little bit more, just to remind us of the things that we can do to help us feel a little bit more present and grounded, okay? Because when we are feeling overwhelmed and those thoughts start to take over and we do become overwhelmed with those feelings, it can be difficult to remind ourselves of all of these different reasons, right? So it's really useful to have something written down and tangible to actually go to and turn to remind us of that. And that's exactly what a safety plan is, right? A safety plan is something that you can even insert into your safety box itself, right? So maybe you have this safety plan, maybe you have it printed out with all these different ideas and information in there, and you can actually insert it into your safety box itself with other tangible things like these photos and maybe some of your favorite snacks, things like that, right? Linking that to the Staying Alive app that does that virtually, right? So it basically takes a safety plan and puts it in an app form so you can have that wherever you go, right? Answering those questions and having that safety plan in your pocket in an electronic format can be really useful. And then another tool that we have on the Wellness Center itself is a distractions tool, distraction technique tool. And that just basically gives us some ideas of various other things that we can do when we are feeling overwhelmed and we start to have these suicidal thoughts or self-harming thoughts. It gives us different things that we can try to distract ourselves from those thoughts, right? Because sometimes that's what we need. And based on how we're feeling, sometimes we need specific things based if we're feeling angry or if we're feeling sad or if we're feeling lonely. Sometimes different things work for different feelings. So it runs through some of these examples there. So I'd encourage everyone to have a look at that, and you can go through some of those tools in the Wellness Center itself. And then lastly, because I just want to leave some time for Q&A at the end as well, just remembering that there are various other pages on the Wellness Center itself, right? The Wellness Center isn't just a self-harm suicide module page, because like I said, these things don't exist in isolation, right? It's important to understand that our well-being and how we're feeling is so connected to so many different aspects here, whether that's our stress and anxiety, whether that's how we're eating, how we're sleeping, what's going on in the workplace, all of these different aspects of our well-being, which you can have a look at and explore in the Wellness Center itself with various videos and information and various tools on there as to how you can improve those different aspects of your well-being and see how they link together to try and get us to a better place. So on that note, I'm going to open up the floor again and hand back to Kevin if he wants to jump in, if we have any questions or any further discussion.
Yeah, brilliant. Thanks, Roberto. Just final slide before we do go to that. Our contact oh my God, I'm a miserable looking sod. Should you want to give us a shout about anything beyond the webinar, there's our web addresses and our email addresses. Remember, we're going to send the slides out. One last thing before I close the deck. Something we like to do on World Suicide Prevention Day is 8 o'clock in the evening. If you've got a candle and you've got a window, would you mind just setting that candle alight in your window for 5 or 10 minutes? It's something done on 10th September, particularly people who have lost someone to suicide, but it's also a strong message that you're there for people who are considering suicide. So maybe have a little think about doing that tonight at 8 o'clock, please. Okay, Inevitable deck finished. We will be sending it out. We have 6 minutes for Q&A. We've got a couple of questions. Have these answers come from people who have tried themselves? Yeah, so the answers we gave you earlier are all based off of lived experience. And we work very closely with a suicide prevention charity called Kelly's Heroes in Northamptonshire to get a lot of our data. And then someone's posted a statement, but I'm still going to read it because it's in Q&A. From this webinar, the most important message I've received is to dismiss those monkeys and open a conversation. And here's the question: appropriateness and overstepping when raising this topic with someone who reports into you at work. Do you have advice on this? Is it something that HR should support? What if the person you ask is angry about this and contacts HR to report a conversation they deem inappropriate? Great question. I'm going to refer back to that slide of the 4 asks, where one of the asks was, what support do they want and not want? HR can be a huge help if the person is on side to that idea. But maybe the greatest support you can give them is by not involving those agencies. So let's find out by asking the person. If we can have an honest conversation and say, if we speak to HR, they could offer this, these might be some ramifications, make an informed judgment on it. Thank you for that. We have got some comments in chat, I notice, which are mainly comments as opposed to questions. What I'm going to do, conscious of time, is we'll go through the chat afterwards, and any questions in chat, we'll show the question and the answer in an email we'll send out to everybody who's been here today. Talking of chat, that adult psychiatric morbidity survey that I showed you the scary numbers from, I've just popped a link in chat should you want to look into that. So part 1 was released about 6 weeks ago. Covers suicide ideation, self-harm, gambling, common mental health disorders. Part 2 is coming out a little later this year, and that will include eating disorders, that will include alcohol and drugs, psychosis, bipolar. So keep an eye out for it. It's such good data because it has been obtained directly from people rather than medical records. Didn't know about the candle? What a lovely way to show support. Absolutely. We need to take the elephant out of the room. And the one guaranteed way to keep the elephant in the room is to not mention the elephant. But it's a tough conversation to have. So we wish you nothing but the best in having those conversations. Roberto, anything more from you before we kick these people out of the room?
No, nothing more from me. Nothing to add. Yeah, just going through the chat. As you said, not really specific questions, more so just comments. So thanks everyone for that, and other people sharing some useful resources as well in here. So that's great. Thank you.
So we'll do 3 things off the back of this webinar. Number 1, we'll send you an email with questions and useful comments and answers to the questions. Number 2, we'll send you the deck as a PDF. Probably send those in the same email. Number 3, within that same email, we'll also include a recording of this session. No one has spoken, so I think we'll keep the Q&A in as well, eh? Yeah. Fantastic. Everyone, thank you so much for taking an hour out of your day on a subject that is so crucial. Every day in England, 15 or 16 people are dying by suicide. We need that number to come down. And thank you very much for your willingness to get involved. Thanks again. Feel free to leave with our love. Bye now.
Thanks, everyone.